Passion our purpose, profit our pain.
I don't ever want my name to be in vain.
A life full of substance is the only thing that will remain the same.
Millennial
Millennial
thought.
thoughts.
We're almost there. I say it every time.
I know. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode. It's your girl, Alieshia.
It's your girl, Sabriya.
And we are back with another episode of Millennial Thoughts. Today, we'll be talking about mental health, basically work versus mental health. So, we are excited to have that conversation. But before we get into that conversation, we do have a millennial mogul of the day. And I apologize in advance. I don't know if her name is pronounced Z Way or Z. Because I didn't pick the millennial mogul today, but she is a comedian and an author. She is a writer, and she's a late night talk show host known for her satirical commentary. It's like satire.
Satirical.
Okay, I was like, how do you say that word?
Like satire, I think. Yeah,
Yes, it's
satirical.
like satire. And it's about politics, relationships, and young adulthood. And so she is known for like writing for other late night shows as Stephen Colbert and DeSeuss and Monroe. Her Instagram is ZIWEF, and she has a book called Black Friends Essays, and she is our millennial mogul of the episode today. So, if you haven't heard of her, go check her out. If you have heard of her, let us know. If y'all think she is doing great in her lane. So, like I said, I don't always pick the people. So, if y'all do have people y'all want to shout out, y'all can email me at millennialthoughtspod@gmail.com, or y'all can DM me at millennialthoughtspod. So I like being able to shout out other people as well who I don't know, but who deserves their flowers, because that's the whole part of Millennial Mogul is giving people their flowers, and doing what they are, doing in their perspective fields. Yeah, that is a Millennial Mogul, and I'll pass it on to Sabriya for the therapy toolkit.
Yes, I love it, Alicia. It's so funny, y'all. We're recording like way earlier than we typically are, so we trying to keep it here. We tied. It's early today, but
It's
I'm excited. I know that daylight savings is hit, so that makes me excited too. So, I mean, I don't know. Are you a fan of like the jump of the jump forward?
Definitely not a fan of the losing an hour, but definitely a fan of the sun. Okay. So I will say that. And that also goes into mental health too. Like, because when it's dark, like dark and cold, I don't understand that. It should be like nice and cold, like outside. It is what it is. So I do feel like now I'm like, oh, I could be outside longer. I can stay. I can do different things just because it's not so dark. So I am a fan of having more daylight. I do like that. Yes.
I can't complain because it's mostly sunny where I am because I live in the sunny
Um,
Canada. So, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little spoiled over here.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So you don't get my drift. I'm in the Midwest. So.
Oh, well, kudos. I'm excited though, because we're going to jump into our therapy toolkit today. For those who
Mhm.
are listening, the therapy toolkit is an opportunity to explore your life on a deeper level. It's a kit that's designed by Lynn Martinson. And basically, this kit pretty much explores different aspects of our lives and how we orient to those parts of our lives. Alicia and I do not know what the topic will be. I pull it randomly. So, like, literally, we have no idea right now what this topic is going to be. And so, it may or may not relate to our career mental health topic today, or maybe not, but we'll see. So, let's pull it out and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Ooh, this one actually does relate really well. The
What?
topic is the word conflict. You see the cup, there's a picture of some cups and a different cup.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
it's conflict. And so how do you navigate conflict in your life? Maybe how did you navigate conflict in your younger years versus how do you navigate conflict now?
Should we like tie it to work or no?
Yeah,
Just
you
in
can connect it to work. Let's say conflict in general.
Yeah, conflict in general. I don't really know if I grew up knowing how to navigate conflict. But we all have conflict or whatever. And I think maybe when I was younger, maybe I probably was less vocal about conflict because, it's like, well, no, I don't know, always saying something. But when I got older in college, I actually was an RA. And that's kind of when I even realized like what conflict management was because I had to do conflict management for my residents.
Hmm.
So yeah, from that, because they got into it, long story short, college students, yeah, they be friends the next week. I'd be like, get off my line. But yeah, so like dealing with conflict when I was younger, it's kind of like, oh, you did this to me, you did this to me, but you don't really say too much. You don't really know what it is. So as I got older, I did know what conflict is and conflict resolution. But all in all, it's really like understanding people and communicating. And so I deal with conflict differently. Sometimes I would just go off on people. Sometimes I would just be quiet. Like it just depends on how I'm feeling, like if I want to say anything. Oh, because some people, it could be passive aggressive or
Oh,
some
I
people could just
hate passive aggressiveness.
yeah, people just see red, and so sometimes, like, you don't really know which one is in between. But when I have a conflict with somebody per se, I usually like to just take it to the head, like not like to you, but like to the person. But in work, you always can't do that. So sometimes I just rally and I talk to my boss about it and I let my boss handle it because, just different things can be said and construed. And so I don't always go to the person, and especially depending because you have superiors or whatever. So I don't always try to go to that person. But if they come to me, then I definitely say my piece. But I would say that I handle conflict probably different in the workplace versus personal. So work, I'm going to go to the boss and say like this happened or something like that. Or if I have like an issue with somebody, if something was brought to me, I will go to that person if they're kind of like on the same level as me. I just probably wouldn't confront like when I'm saying superior, I'm saying like a boss or like a director or something like that. I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but within my friend group, like, I don't know, I don't have a lot of conflict, but if I'm feeling some type of way about something, I do say something. But sometimes I'm just like, it's hard for me to say something because I'm like, well, some people don't really care. Like, they be like, we don't care about the issue. So then I just don't say anything. I just chuck it up and I just keep it moving. So I think those are kind of like my
Like
different,
picking your battles.
yeah, picking my battles. And so those are my different ways that I deal with conflict. Then I would say in a romantic relationship, I would say that, oh, I'm saying something off riffs.
Pulling all the stakes out.
Saying something like
All
I'm
the
not holding
stops.
back for real. I'm not holding back. I'm gonna say what I have to say.
So it's funny when I'm hearing you talk about your experience with conflict. When I was growing up, I feel like I got two versions of conflict resolution stuff. It was either very conflict avoidant or it was very like defensive or struggling to receive feedback. That's kind of like what I witnessed and I feel like I experienced growing up. And so I feel like I kind of let a lot of things slide as I like went through school and stuff like that. I kind of maybe a bit of a pushover in some ways. I feel like I started to find my voice more though, like in later high school, maybe college, where I kind of was like, no, I don't have to accept that. And I think my husband also, he's very like strong headed and he's the only child. And so he's very like strong in himself. And I think that his encouragement really helped me too over the years to just be okay saying, hey, this is not okay to someone, right? And just being real with people. And so I think that it's interesting. In work conflicts, I usually do find myself shutting down. But one thing I've learned is that it's so important to have a paper trail. And so one thing I believe is if there's any type of discrepancy or anything where people can try to use something against me, I typically try to email or send things in a chat or some sort of system where I can go back and say, this is what I said. This is not what I said. This is what I did. This is what happened. Here is the paper trail of what happened. And so that's what I've tried to do in the workplace experience whenever I've worked in organizations. But I've been in situations too where it has been my manager where I felt uncomfortable with them. And so I kind of just sucked it up, quite frankly. I mean, I didn't really know what else there is to do at that time. And so I think that it takes a really self-aware person and a really open-minded manager to receive a difficult feedback. And I feel like most people have not done their work, so they can't receive feedback without seeing it as criticism. And so that's the unfortunate thing I feel like we're in a society of is people don't do a good job taking feedback, quite frankly. I've done my work. So while feedback still sometimes can hurt, I'm still willing to take feedback. So that's just my perspective on conflict. I think conflict is a dialogue.
Yeah, that's good. And to your 2 points, I think I'm strong-headed too, but I think also when growing up, it could be more defensive because it's like, what are you saying about me? So like to you saying your husband's like strong-headed, this is who I am. That's kind of me. Like that's me. Like I'm strong-headed. I'm gonna say what's on my mind. But I would say could have more be defensive, but also, growing up in our households as we've been talking, it's kind of even hard to even find your voice to even say anything. Because what if you have a conflict with your parents? Like, you can't talk back, you can't respond back. So it's kind of like you even do that now. And so I wouldn't say I had a conflict with my bosses or whatever, but in my previous roles, I've definitely had like issues on like how they talk to me and stuff like that. And that it's kind of like, well, what do you do? What do you say? You can't really say anything because like, okay, they're the boss. Who do you talk to? I know. And so you don't even know like how they're going to respond, how they're going to receive it. So you do kind of got to like chuck it up, which is kind of annoying because it's like, at the end of the day, I'm not really your child. Like, I'm not really just, I'm here to do a job, you know? So that's kind of hard too. But even finding your voice and even trying to speak up for yourself during conflict can also be like really hard in different situations.
I agree. I agree. And this actually pulls us really well into our topic for today, work versus mental health. I think that's probably one of the biggest conflicts as humans we face on this like God-given earth is just this idea of how do we deal with the discrepancy and the stress that work can bring to our lives and how do we manage that? And sometimes it can be a conflict within the workplace. And so I'm just curious, Alieshia, over in general, like what's been your relationship with work throughout your life? I mean, how do you feel about work? Are you one of those people that work to live or live to work? What would you say?
That's a really good question because I really never thought if I work to live or live to work. I would say I definitely enjoy my roles that I've done. Besides one probably because there's a lot of work. I was like, "Ooh, child." But I don't think I live to work. I work to live. And so with that being said, like I don't necessarily know if you have to be like passionate about your job. I'm not that one that has to be passionate, so passionate. Although I am passionate about different things, I don't feel like you have to be passionate about your job. I feel like I have gotten my degree, I've worked in my field, I've worked out of my field. I don't necessarily do jobs just to do them. I really have to have my experience and I have to know that I can do the job, but also I want to have a job that's going to pay me what I'm worth and give me like flexibility and stuff like that, so that I can be able to live the lifestyle that I want to live. And so, as I was saying, I think in like a different episode, when you think about careers and stuff like that, like they tell you, like, pick a job that you feel like you're never gonna work a day or whatever. It's like, no, you are
Such
working,
a
you're
myth.
working hours a day. Like you have to provide and that's why like this whole word with value is really like it makes me cringe in the content creation world and in the job world. It's like me working, I'm doing this. It's like what value? It's like your value is your self-worth or whatever. So when you tie your value to your self-worth for working, it really affects your mental health. So it's like if I'm not working, then I'm not doing this or whatever. And then society makes you look bad when you don't work. Even family members or whatever, like when you don't have a job, people are like, you're not working. And it's like, no, I'm not working. Like, no. So I think that that's just like a whole shift change, whatever. But when we see COVID and then you see that layoffs are happening, businesses are closing, stuff like that, it's kind of like, well, where does your value lie into? And so I think that people need to think of outside of like jobs and stuff like what do you do for fun? What do you have?
Like, who are
Um,
you beyond your work?
who are you behind work? So I would definitely say to wrap that answer up is I work to live. I don't live to work.
Yeah, I
What
think
about
well, it's funny because I think that COVID really showed the fickleness of work. I think for so long, we as Americans in particular, I feel like our society, we really root our identity in work. One of the first things you ask somebody when you meet them is, what do you do? For like, and most times it's what your job is. And I love this idea that you're saying that we don't have to like be in love with what we do all the time. I think it's a very dangerous notion that we have really spread. And I feel like it's gotten, especially to like think about the generations, like I'm not saying we want to be like, I understand boomers oftentimes and like the generations before us, they just oftentimes had to accept misery with their work and they just let it be. And that was kind of the culture. But I also feel like we're just as dangerous. And I was just telling my husband this the other day, we're just as dangerous if we get to a point where we believe that everything about work should be enjoyable and great. And that's where I feel like our newer generations are moving towards. And if it's not that, then I want to leave. And I feel like there's a delicate balance in everything. And what I always tell people, especially I'm a business owner, so my work is not typical to the 9 to 5. But at the end of the day, I tell people straight up, work is work is work is work is work. It's work. Work is still work. I mean, there is not one job that you'll do that you'll love every aspect. There's something that you'll hate, the paperwork, whether it's dealing with a certain client, something, there's always something you won't like. And for me, I have come to think about my work as it's almost like dating. You can like a person, but also not like qualities about them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the workplace. You're gonna like you're looking for the core qualities. Does this place help me feel good morally? Does this place make me feel like I'm doing something to make a difference to help somebody? Does this place pay me what I feel sustains my life? Yes, they might do this or that, but I think it's important to have your kind of deal breakers, just like you,
Coworkers. Yeah,
yeah, like just like you
definitely.
do it in dating, because that's what it is. And there's gonna always be things that you have to kind of flex yourself and be willing to accept because that's part of work.
Yeah, I know. And so but that's why it's dangerous because when we're kids, it's like, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And it's ingrained when we're younger. And then in college, it's like, okay, pick a career that you will feel like you can work forever. And it's just like, but we're not giving the tools to be like, no, work is work. And so even I think that comes into play when people are asking like, should we tell kids to be an influencer and our content creator? No, because they think it's glamour, gets and fun, and it's not. And it's like, let's not set these kids up to fail. Everybody wants to be content creators and influencers. And now we don't have nurses, we don't have doctors, we don't have dentists, we don't like it's okay to have a career. Like, and
Literally.
I think that within social media, it is showing that entrepreneurship is great too. But then you have entrepreneurs that just become entrepreneurs. Then we have braiders that are not wanting to wash your hair, braiders that are just charging you $500. Like we don't even have the stuff to even prepare them or even send them out to be great entrepreneurs. So yes, as you said, work can be fun. And I do think that you should enjoy, I think what makes work better, kind of, even if you do hate your job, enjoying your coworkers. And people
Mhm.
always say like family, stuff like that, but it like depends on the morale. Do you enjoy talking to your coworkers? Do you enjoy hanging out with them? Is your job not so strenuous? Like, do you like find the parts of your job that you like and just kind
Is
of
it
go?
flexible?
And so with me, I like technology. So I really enjoyed doing technology in my last role. Now I work and I do technology, So I enjoy all aspects of my job and my role because I'm doing something that I like to do. And so within that, you just gotta find pockets or whatever. But then also how we talk about it, you don't have to love your job. And guess what? That's why you have a life outside of your job. Love
Yeah.
what you want to do outside. My passions are outside. I like to write. I like to create content. That's not my job because then when it turns into your job, then you're sitting here like, oh, I'm burnt out. I'm sick and tired. So I
That
think
right
that
there.
is a difference. Like, do stuff that you're passionate about outside of your work. And I was even talking to that, like, I'd say quit telling people. This is just my point. I'm like, we need to quit telling people to make their passion their paycheck because then people are losing their passion. And then also, your
Ooh.
passion may not even get you paid how you want. So I think that you should do whatever job that's going to make you the most money, that's going to sustain your lifestyle, and do your passions outside of that. That's just my thing. And I think that that can overall really help your mental health. You're not trying to get a dollar, trying to do this, trying to cheat people, because you want to do your passion, because you want to be an entrepreneur so bad. There is nothing wrong with 9 to 5. I call myself a corporate creative, and I don't mind knowing that I'm going to get paid this, and that. So then I could do other stuff that I love for fun, because also you literally pick your heart. Building your dream is hard, but also going to your 9 to 5 is hard.
Oh my
But
God.
what is hard? What's the most hardest? Paying your bills. So let's kind of become stable, pay our bills, and then figure out that, so that you're not struggling trying to figure out how you're gonna pay your bills, which also can affect your mental health. And not saying career is subjective. Like you don't have to have this 20, 30-year career at one job. You do not have to have that. You could bounce around, you could do jobs, you can create your own career at this point. You can be a nurse for 3, 4 years, you could go be whatever else you want to do. Like you can really take control of your own career.
Yeah, I
And
want
I think that is what we need to share. Sorry, what are you
I,
going
no,
to
it's
say?
okay. I want to piggyback off of what you said there about this idea of you have to choose your hard, because I do believe people have to understand that everything in life is a trade-off. You know, even as someone who's worked in the 9 to 5 space and who's also moved into the entrepreneurship space, I do have a trade-off that I have to live with on a day-to-day, right? So like my
Mhm.
life is fickle, right? My financials are going to be more fickle because it's based on clientele, it's based on projects, it's based on what comes up. I do get the benefit and the luxury of flexibility, but then when I'm overly flexible, if I'm not working, that's also meaning that you don't always get paid unless you have passive things set up that take time to do. And I think people want to have it all, and they see online those few people who do have it all. And luckily, I do happen to do something I really like. Don't get me wrong. There's times that I'm like, I can, and by the way, I do therapy, and I also work in the corporate wellness space and the community mental health and wellness space. there's parts that I love and there's parts that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just want this day to be over. There's days that Alicia, I'm working till 10 some days. Like it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
So your work hours are
I'll be on
people.
at 5. Don't talk
Yeah,
to me about work.
see, you're done at 5. That's what I'm saying. Like, and so I work sometimes unexpectedly on a weekend for something. I might have to speak, I might have to travel. And so there's so many moving parts that people don't understand. Traveling for work is very different for traveling for leisure. And everybody thinks that traveling for work can always be fun. And sometimes you can get a leisure in, and sometimes all I see is a hotel room and food that I ordered DoorDash to the hotel room. And so
Mhm.
I just think it's important that people understand that you cannot, it's very rare that you will have every checkbox met in your working experience. And just understand that everything has a price, right? When you work, I know people who own businesses where at one point they thought they were going to be able to get their dream house, and the next moment they can't because they lost their biggest client. That is real stuff that nobody talks about. And I think it's important to understand that when you choose your working experience, it's a holistic experience. It's how much freedom do you want to have? It's how much do you want to like what you do? How much do you want to make? What type of work are you doing? There's so many factors. And so I highly recommend that you look at what are you willing to sacrifice, because you will always give up something in work.
Yeah. And to that point too, I do think that entrepreneurship is glamorized. And I actually have always probably wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I do know that even going into it, I know that I really like my time freedom. And so even when I was younger though, even before COVID, I knew that I wanted to travel. That's just my lifestyle. Like I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to have freedom, but I necessarily didn't know anything about working remotely, but I didn't know about blogging. And so even within that, I started blogging because I'm like, I'm about to be this writer. I'm about to be this writer. And I know with writing, it can take you anywhere. You can work from home and stuff like that. So if you do kind of even want to have the most best worlds, there's writers, there's something called a tech writer, like you could write for a company and then you could write for yourself. So there's ways to even find your role, what you want to do, and kind of make it fit to your standard and stuff. But it is true, like, okay, I'm off at 5, but then it's like, okay, at 5 o'clock, then I get home and then I have to get ready to do my own thing. Or I could be an entrepreneur where I wake up at 10 o'clock and I can start my day at 12 o'clock, but then I'm working till 10 o'clock at night. So I do think that is something that is not really instilled in people. And then also it's like what comes behind the entrepreneurship, what comes behind the 9 to 5. So I think all those different things can affect your mental health. And I don't think that people are really having conversations because we do see on social media, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah, but also entrepreneurship, you got to get paid every single day. Like if you're not working, you don't. Versus like I'm on spring break at my job. I'm still getting paid for this. Entrepreneurs sometimes don't have that luxury. They're not going to get paid if they don't have it. So again, it's the good and the bad. I get breaks, I get paid for them. Also, that's the difference too. Like being salary, some people get, vacation or whatever. But so it kind of affects within all that and career mental health, and then that can go into finances. So it's really a
I,
whole spill of everything.
I agree. And it's funny because, like, when I think about the contractor role, which I'm a big fan of contracting, I think a lot of people sleep on it because a lot of people are afraid of it because it doesn't include health insurance and it doesn't include set paid time off. But one thing is, contracting serves as a great hybrid between
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship and between the salaried regular role. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of companies are treating contract roles like regular full time, which technically you're not supposed to, but that's a whole governmental separate thing. And at the end of the day, though, contract work can be a great way to give yourself some flexibility and freedom, but you have to accept the fact that there's some things that are not going to be set in stone with contracts. Contracts can be cut out of nowhere. Contracts are fickle. You don't get health insurance. You don't get certain benefits. So once again, I tell people it's important to understand what are you willing to risk and what are you willing to accept. So let me ask you this, Alicia, though. How do we know when it's time to like quit? How do we know when it's time to leave a job because our mental health is being impacted? Like what are like some of the indicators in your opinion that it's time to make the transition, since I know you've made different transitions in your career as well as I?
Mm-hmm. I think the time to quit at a job, it could be different factors. Um, I would say depending on how your mental health is, like if you literally hate waking up to go to the job, you probably want to quit. Like if you hate it, if the tasks are getting so mundane that you don't even want to do the task no more, if you don't have that morale with your staff, and then also if you are at like a point of your career, like, people want to get promotions and they want to move up. If you feel like you've been at a job for a while and you're not getting promoted, or there's you're at the cap, like the ceiling cap, it's time to go if you want to make more money, if you want to have different experiences. So if you feel like I'm not making enough money, leave, but have a job before you leave, you know. But if you feel like you're not valued, if you feel like you're not a valued person on that team, if you feel like you can't speak up for yourself, if you feel like you don't have any voice or whatever when within your perspective roles of what you are doing, I think that you know, you should leave. And so I think it definitely does take time. So you have to prepare yourself. You got to make sure your resume is right. You got to make sure your cover letters right. You got to make sure you have interviews. You got to make you, and that's also even a job. Like that's a
It is.
job, looking for a job, you know.
Yes.
So I think that when you think about quitting something, or hey, if you are married and your spouse supports you taking a career break, go ahead and do that. If you want to take a sabbatical, go ahead and do that. If you have money saved up and you want to do a sabbatical, I'm like, all power to you. You know, I support that with what you're doing. So I think that it could be different reasons to why you want to quit your job, but definitely I just feel like you should know, even thinking about like, what is your job offer? Like, do they offer time off? You know, like, do they offer you to get therapy? I do know my last role, I got like 3 or 4 free therapy sessions, and I just took them just to talk about like life and like what's going on and what's happening. But they was free under my employer, so I took it. And so even using those things, but making sure you use all your benefits and your resources before you quit is what I'm saying. Okay. Make sure you get everything.
Use it
Okay.
all.
Everything in there before you quit your job. So that's what my answer would be. What about you?
You know, it's funny because the first thing that came to me, and I try to think about like the reasons why I quit in the past for situations. You know, I found myself always hit a brick wall in my career. I've worked a lot of careers, y'all. So I'm one of those people that people are like, "Did you live like 50 lives?" I've worked in real estate, pharmaceuticals, higher
Mhm.
ed. I've worked in marketing. I've worked.
What
I
did
mean,
you do in
you
higher ed?
I did. I worked at Chapel Hill years ago. I
Oh.
had a great manager too. She was amazing. And so, UNC Chapel Hill, that is in North
Oh
Carolina.
yeah. Do you feel like because you're an entrepreneur, just asking, like, do you feel like that's why you had like a lot of roles, or do you feel like you was finding yourself and you kind of landed into entrepreneurship within the career
That's a good
range?
question. I think that every role I did prepared me for the entrepreneur I am today. I
Hmm.
definitely like from learning sales and the basis of real estate, from understanding the precision in pharmaceuticals, from the marketing skills I learned from my marketing work. I worked at a vet tech job, and that required a lot of documentation and understanding how to communicate with clients. Being at Chapel Hill, I worked as an admissions counselor. So I kind of did counseling, but not in the mental health space, but didn't realize that I was
Hmm.
going to be that.
Hmm.
So it's funny how if you told me like 5 years ago, 10 years ago that I'd be doing this, I would laugh in your face. Like, I'd be like, you are wild. But I do believe that everything kind of got me here because I would constantly find myself hitting a brick wall. There was like an apathy that I would get to mentally where I'd feel completely apathetic. I don't care about moving up in this career. I don't care about this work anymore. I literally don't care. And when I got to that place, that let me know that I needed to find something different. And
Oh.
so between college and being out of college, I had a lot of internships. I highly recommend if you're in college, do all the internships, take them, do them, not just for the money, but it's just great growth opportunities. And so I mean, from working as a vet tech, making like $8 an hour, trying to help a person draw blood from a dog's neck, because that's how they do. They take the blood out the jugular, it's a whole thing. I mean, sometimes they do. Sometimes they do the arm, but sometimes they have to do the jugular. I mean, it's a whole thing. I've done some of the most like I had to work. I remember one time I had an internship where I was working with like chickens, like literally like I was working with like raw chicken meat and having to
Say
pull.
you're from North Carolina without saying you're from North Carolina.
Right. And like we had to literally pull all of the chicken meat off the bone and like weigh the bones because we were trying to do some kind of research on how the bone density was affected by the food. It was like a whole
Mm.
thing. Like I worked with chickens when I worked in the pharmaceutical. I remember being in my first time going to like those big old chicken houses with all the chickens because it was like a pharmaceutical for vaccinating chickens. Like it's just so many things that I have done and that I have learned and grown from through the mentors, the jobs. So I recommend, if possible, to do as many different types of careers if you can. That's one thing that I'm glad I did because it made me the entrepreneur I am today.
What is apathy? You talked about it a little bit more, but can you explain what apathy
Yeah,
is?
like apathy is just this disconnect, this kind of like disinterest. Like it's almost like a numbness to your life. And I feel like I have gone through those kind of phases where I just feel like I just don't care. Like I don't care up or down. And I feel like when I get to a job like that where I'm just so far removed mentally, it's time for me
Mhm.
to leave. But don't get me wrong, I felt apathy throughout my entrepreneurship journey at different times. And I think that it's something that you can work through because you have to go back and say, wow, what am I missing? What do I need to do? Because entrepreneurship, once again, it's still work. And so but you can't just quit it. You can, but like if you built something, you don't want to just quit it. So you have to go back and look at yourself and say, what am I missing? Where am I feeling disconnected? And then I'll
Yeah.
also add is that morality. If your morals are getting tested in an environment, if it's keeping you from sleeping at night, which I experienced when I was in the real estate field, I feel like there's a lot of like salesy ickiness that can come with that. No offense to realtors, but sometimes in certain sales environments, things can feel very inauthentic or you can't be honest. And I did not like that. And so when I got to that place where my morals were in question, it was time for me to
Mhm.
leave.
Oh no, I agree too. Morals and ethics too, and like past roles or whatever. Like that salesy part when you gotta sell this, and I'm like, I don't know about that one. Like you gotta sell, then you gotta be lying and stuff like that. And I don't be lying for myself, and I'm not lying for
I'm not
y'all.
lying for nobody else, right? Like,
Okay, baby, y'all not about to have me up there over here trying to get to the pearly gates and like you lied. No, thank you. But to your point earlier, I was gonna say internships are important. I feel like I wish I would have done more internships, and I think that is not really something that every major requires. My major required only like one or two, so that's all I did. But other ones required a couple more. But even when we're talking about like trying to achieve your dream career and stuff like that, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that we really should focus on like trying to do different internships. If you have an experience or whatever that you want to try, definitely share this like with your kids and your nieces and nephews or whatever. But like definitely take internships. And I think now, to your point though, people students are like, oh, I need to get paid, I need to get paid. But it's like, how can I pay you when you haven't even done the role before? And so now I think people are so money, money, money. Like I get we need to have money, but just get you a regular job. Like you need internship for the experience as well. And so I think that like that is not said a lot. And I know that we hate unpaid internships. I definitely do think that you should get paid,
yeah,
but go
yeah.
into a paid internship when you already know you have experience. If you do not have experience, I don't necessarily think you should get, I don't want to say you shouldn't get paid because I don't want them to come back and say it,
It's hard.
but
It's
like
hard.
think about different options or something like that. Like don't be like, I should be a social media manager and I should get paid when you haven't managed no social medias.
Yes,
Like
yes.
you don't
I
have
think it's
anything. So
important to at least have transferable skills too. So like I
yes.
think about I don't know if I did how many I don't know if I even did any unpaid internships in college, but what I did was I sold myself on the skills. Like I started off as like a housing assistant. I worked in like the university housing office. That was like my very
Mhm.
first university
Oh yeah,
job.
I was an RA.
Well,
I
yeah,
know
that's
this.
that's funny. We're both in housing, and so
Mhm.
I took though every time I got skills from a job, I took that and used that to cross sell it to even other fields. And so I
Mhm.
recommend, even if you don't have direct experience, how can you show what you did before connects
Mhm.
to this other role that you're interested in? That's
Well,
important.
that's what I didn't get because I did not get a degree or I didn't take a class in transferable skills selling, but I should have because I do know that I have transferable skills. I've learned it more now, but even to that point, yeah, like trying to negotiate your money and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, like, if you're interested in something, kind of don't worry about the money because when you're in college is when you don't have to worry about the money, baby. Because after college, you got to worry about the money. So when you're in college, just try different things. If you want to try this, you want to try that, go ahead and try it. I did a couple different internships, but I was already in the kind of the field that I wanted to be in. So that's why I didn't go and do other internships. But now there's so many different opportunities for internships. I would just say try them out. And then also if you are able and you don't have to work or whatever, just try something creative. Try to see, just apply for something, just to kind of learn new skills, figure different things out. So that is kind of what I would say on that internship piece.
I love that. I love that. And let's move it. I think it's time that we go into our therapy corner. And so I just want to give a few final thoughts to someone who may be struggling with their mental health in the workplace. Here are some things you can do. And I already love that you mentioned a lot throughout this, Alieshia, but I think it's so important, as Alieshia said, have things that you look forward to outside of your workplace. And
Mhm.
then do that deal breaker assessment. What is your workplace giving to you and what is it not giving to you? Are you willing to accept where it does not meet your expectations? Understand that we can't have it all. That's just not how life work typically works, right? I think it's also important to take time to get your day started with something relaxing. I like to get outside a little bit. I like to take some fresh air. I take the dogs out. So find something that starts your day off on the right note outside of work, and also try to find a way to end your day. Like for tonight, for example, I'm looking forward to my new season of Love is Blind, a new episode. I'm looking forward to like my things. And so have your things that you can look forward to outside of and after work as a way to just remind yourself that, hey, you're more than just a work bot. You're a human being with interests, goals, and desires and things you love. So that's my tip. I don't know. What's your tip?
Yes, I love the deal breaker tip. I'm already excited for my next show next week. I'm like, okay, it's coming out next week. Let me get ready for it. Yeah, so I definitely love your deal breaker assessment. I definitely think that getting up early and doing something for yourself. Now I have been saying like I get up early and I go to the gym. I mean, I go, so that's kind of like a part of my routine. So I'm up early and I'm like more creative because I'm already thinking because I'm already up a while. So then I just have like ideas down, I write down, but also during my lunch break, like I like decompress. And so even that time, like using that time to just be creative, listen to something, have something fun. After work, I try to go to networking events and stuff like that. I try to create fun outside of work. And so I would definitely like hone in. If you like to travel, plan a trip. If you like to, write, go to a conference or something like that. Like try to like develop personally as much as you are developing professionally as well. So that's what I think my tips would be for this career versus, mental health with working.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks y'all for joining us. This was
Yes.
good.
Hopefully y'all enjoy this episode. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, and make sure you rate us if you are listening to us on the audio form, and follow us on Instagram at Millennial Thoughts Pod and Facebook Millennial Thoughts. We would love to see y'all, chat with y'all, and hear from y'all. Stay tuned for our next episode. Bye.
Bye.